Hey, this is Mike Shank, and this is the AtSpeedpodcast presented by Rocky Fork Company.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. As Mike Shank just introed, we are brought to you by Rocky Fork Company, the AtSpeed Podcast, and this is what you'd call a very special blossom. AtSpeed Podcast, because Mike Shank's getting ready to take his team into a full season of IndyCar racing starting this weekend in St. Petersburg, Florida. Mike, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, guys. I'm glad we could get together here. We're on the eve of the first weekend of a 17 race series for us this year, and we're heading to St. Petersburg, and we look forward to racing on Sunday. It'll be live on NBC Sports Network.
Based on news from the middle of the week, I will ask this question right off the bat: did all your haulers make it okay?
Yeah, that's I woke up the other morning and to see that news.
Wow.
And that is probably one of my biggest nightmares. I got to tell you, I immediately called my other logistics drivers in for the sports car program just 4 hours ago and said, guys, where are we at with our trailers? What caused this? We looked into what caused their problem. You guys got to realize, our net worth is going down the road. When we load our shops, there's not a whole lot left. Right. And so it's critical. It just goes to show the critical part that these transport drivers have in the livelihoods and kind of what all of us do.
Yeah, and that's pretty much why they deadhead too, man. No stopping, right? For the most part. But bottom line, we're talking about Colton Herta's transporter with the Andretti Autosport called Fire. And how much did they salvage from that, Mike? Did they get most of the stuff out? What have you heard?
Yeah. So from what I've been told, obviously we have a relationship with Andretti pretty deep. So we offered our help immediately. They didn't need a whole lot. They had a backup rig, and they heard some pit equipment, so the support equipment that sits in the pit lane while we're on the track. And the car got some water and smoke damage, but nothing that's going to keep it off the track.
Go ahead.
I think they brought a spare car now with them just to make sure of it, but I'm almost positive this won't affect what that kid's capable of.
Hey, does a team as large as Andretti Autosport, does it carry like basically a generic backup car that's available to anybody on their team? How does that? How do they handle things like that?
Typically, it's just like what we do. When we go to ovals, we do take a spare car.
Yeah.
But when we go to road courses these days, we don't. You got to remember, we're not allowed to have but one motor in a car at a time. So we can't have a spare car like in the good old days, built up and ready to go.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to the brass tacks here. How excited are you, Mike? You've been working to this. Well, really, you've been working to this basically half your life, 3/4 of your life, but to be a full-time team owner in the IndyCar series. And, you've had great success in the sports car racing with IMSA, which you're still doing with your Acura NSX program. But how excited are you to be on, like you said, the sun's coming up and the new dawn is you in the IndyCar series full time?
Yeah, no, it's a big deal for me personally. For a lot of the guys that have been in the shop, it's something that we've all kind of worked toward for 25 plus years. And it just came from not giving up, really, and just keeping our head down and trying to keep the deals right and make our programs valuable to our clients and sponsors. And it's all kind of paying off. Sometimes it does go your way, right? So now it's literally up to us to make this opportunity not squandered, right? Like, we need to get out there. And it comes in two forms. It comes from the team and it comes from our driver. And both of us got to understand that opportunities like this rarely come along. And we need to manage it, and we need to manage our expectations and try to improve every single time we roll off the trailer, whether that's a pit stop or whether that's something Jack's doing or something the engineers are doing setup wise. Whatever it is, we need to get a little nugget out of every weekend that we can do better.
Yeah,
I can tell you, I'm extremely excited about this weekend. I'm really excited about the Indianapolis 500. We have a car back at the shop here that we're prepping up for that event. The sub-assemblies, meaning the gearbox and uprights and axles, they're all being specially rubbed. And we're trying to get all the drag out of them we can and be ready to hit that ground pounding too. So big weekend for us this week.
You're trying to get all the drag out of it within the rules, right?
That's of course.
Hey, like Ryan Day, the head coach at Ohio State, you think you're pretty good, but you don't know really until the gloves go on, so to speak, in boxing. How you match up with that guy across from you. What's he bringing that you don't have, or what do you have that he doesn't have? You would think even in testing, some people hold some things back, et cetera. But what is, like you just said, you've got the sense that y'all could be fairly competitive out of the box. What is that? Explain to people what that kind of confidence is based on.
Well, we've all been to a couple tests together, kind of had an all skate at a couple we call open tests, right? We had one at Coda in Austin and one at Sebring a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And, in IndyCar, it's a little bit different deal. There's not a whole lot of sandbagging going. There might be a little bit, right? But compared to sports car, but
yeah,
everybody wants to be the fastest person on that track at every single hour that any cars are out on the track. It's just the way it is, right? We're continually making sure that we put tires on at the right part of the day, that we can try to put a lap down. And I tell you what that does. It's really just about confidence and momentum. And it's such a long drag through this season. You want to try to keep everybody up all the time. Mm-hmm. And we work on the attitudes for every person on the team. So immediately we come up, we leave a test. We want to have our head up. We were like, okay, we're going the right direction in every department. And all that matters at the end of the championship. All of it matters.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, and the bottom line is if you're sandbagging, if you're not really out there trying to find out how fast you can go, which is what racing is all about, you're kind of like doing yourself a disservice, if you are playing games. So, I just wanted to see what you'd answer that. Hey, Mike, what's been sort of the I don't know, the scuttlebutt, or, what kind of rules are you guys living under this weekend, new rules with this coronavirus situation? It's been declared a pandemic, I think, by the World Health Organization. But what are you guys, what's going to be different about the way y'all go about business this weekend? And has there been any scuttlebutt at all about maybe keeping fans out of the stands? I haven't heard that there has.
So the last I've checked, there are no plans on not allowing people. So everybody.
Wait a minute, let me interrupt. Yeah, and we're recording this in midweek, but go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's as of today, there's no stoppage of people coming to this track, right? So we're going to have the full kit. Everybody's coming. Obviously there are a lot more precautions in place from the series, from the track side, and from the team side. Meaning, I can tell you from us personally, we're the cleanest team we've ever been. If there's an upside out of this, my guys are like a walking bottle of alcohol, of
Purell.
Alcohol.
Yeah,
Purell. And so that's probably a good thing. We all smell great. So the downside is we see what all the downside is, which is unfortunate. But so far so good. We're all coming racing, and I've been told that the events after this, we're talking about Barber, Long Beach, Coda, are still actively going forward also.
Yeah. Hey, give people one example of how you might be cleaner than you were a week ago. I'm talking about as a team. What are you mandating that your driver, you have one driver, what are you mandating that your personnel do on a hourly basis, day-to-day basis to make sure, you kind of take precautions?
Well, I'll give you an example. Here's a great example. I've got one of my guys that looks after facility stuff for us and trailers that they go around every morning and they start wiping down everything that we touch every day, the common parts. So instead of that happening once every 2 weeks or once a week, it's happening every day, as an example.
Wow.
Okay, so any of the high touch areas are getting what I would call disinfected and cleaned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is massively different than, listen, our stuff has always been very clean, right?
Right.
But we're just taking it to another level to try to do our part, and making sure we don't have anything to do with spreading anything.
As you like to say, your OCD is probably in hyperdrive anyway. But,
it's tough because it plays with your brain a little bit after a while,
Yeah, I'm going to get into a couple of things about the car, the track, and stuff like this. But I want to ask you personally, as you sit here ready to jump off into this, do you just, as a team owner who's been dreaming about this day forever, I'm talking about the actual start of a full season. I'm not making too big a deal about it. I mean, this is a nice major accomplishment by you to get to this point. But do you just obsess over, did we cover this base? Did we cover that base? I mean, or do you sleep extremely well at night? How do you kind of go into it?
I'll tell you exactly because I just had this discussion with my partner last night. And my sponsor. I can tell you that we are better in every single department than we've ever been in the IndyCar program. Let's talk about sub-assemblies, talk about body setup, talk about suspension chassis stuff. We're better at pit stop. I mean, like, we're just having some great stops in practice.
Yeah.
So we're better than anything we've ever done in the past. And that's all I can ask, really, ultimately, right? We need to be able to step to the level of these guys that have been doing it for 20 years. And I'm telling you, I think we have a couple, 2-3 podiums in us, a handful of top 10s for sure, and a solid top 10 championship finish if we execute and keep the mistakes at the bare minimum.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. As you go into, and there's hardly, no matter who it is, the Penske Racing team, Andretti, Rahal Letterman, all these teams go in with high expectations for a weekend, and yet, as the team owner more than anybody else, you have to be ready to counterpunch, right? I mean, you have to, there's hardly ever been a perfect weekend. Do you ever worry about what could be coming, or how do you handle that just as an owner?
All the time. All the time. I always have a plan A, B, and C, right?
Yeah.
And if I don't, it's a real surprise. It's because I'm so busy, I just haven't been able to think about it.
Yeah.
But I always have a backup plan to what could happen if X happens. And that way, I'm just trying to minimize the surprises for everybody involved, including myself.
Yeah.
I've already got my head wrapped around that we may need to do X, or we may need to go fight a battle over here because I saw something on the track that Jack did, right?
Yes.
Or, all those kind of things are keyed up, so we're ready to react to them as quickly as we can. I think that's part of being a great team is being prepared enough to not be too surprised when stuff goes sideways,
Yeah, it's like basically thinking through something just in case, contingency plans. Yeah,
you gotta have some OCD at the high levels of motorsports racing. You really do.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you'll just get left. You'll get left behind by all the guys like Penske's that do this in their sleep.
Yeah, well, he hardly ever sleeps, so there you go, right? That's the point. And I would think you don't sleep a lot, but I may be wrong, just knowing you and stuff. But Hey, real quick, before we dive into like I said, the car and stuff, things I want to ask you about that. But who's on? Take your team out of the mix, and we've talked about this a little bit before. Who should people be looking at as and I know 15, 18 cars can probably win a race now, maybe more than that. But who do you see as the guys you are truly chasing going into this season? I mean, who is the for want of another term, who is the Louisiana State, that won the national championship this past year in college football? Who have you got? Who do you have in your sights, I guess?
Well, I mean, who the number one guy is. You always got to beat him, is Dixon. I mean, he is like a robot. Even though he's a bit older and has 3 kids now, he is an absolute master of what he does.
Yeah.
And is always thinking probably more than you're thinking. If you're competing if you're racing, man on man with him, and he hasn't lost any speed, So,
and plus, let me interrupt. Plus, Mike Hall is one of the great guys out there too in that regard. I mean, of running a strategy in the race team. But go ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, they've seen it all.
Yeah.
So you would have to say that, but guys that are super, all these guys are great. I'm not kidding you when I say this. There are no bad drivers, right? But if you just look at some of the things that Penske always is, ridiculous, right? There's just no weakness there. Once in a while they have a bad weekend, like we all will have,
Yeah.
And he has 3 cars though, so he always has another bullet in the chamber, right? So
correct.
You're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to deal with that all the time. You look at it, like some of our teammates, which are just outstanding, and just mega, mega hungry, like a Rossi. And, Rossi's a guy that, he doesn't care anything about you or anything around you, right? He's going to drive through, over, and around you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect that, because we're here not to make friends, by the way.
Yeah.
We're here to get paid at a pretty decent level and bring results to our partners, whether it's Honda or our sponsors,
Yeah.
And that's the old school way. These days, all these drivers and stuff, a lot of them are real cliquey and are really good friends with each other, which is fine. I love friends, right? And doing stuff off track. But I wonder sometimes what it does for the competitive nature on the track,
Well, I had that complaint about IndyCar a long time ago is, as opposed to NASCAR got this right a long time ago, and kind of reeled back on. Now they're back into it a little bit. But, IndyCar tried to portray itself as like this circus that was coming to town, was going to put on a show for everybody, as opposed to, everybody's all happy, and everybody's not all happy, gets along because you're trying to beat the brains in of the guy next to you in the next pit, but they kind of portrayed it like that for a while, which I didn't think was the right way to go. I mean, you got to have protagonists and antagonists to really make people pay attention to something. You agree?
It's competition.
Yeah.
I need to beat their ass every weekend.
Yeah.
Every weekend, every down, however you want to term it, every session, I want to beat the guy across from me. And if my guy driving my car doesn't feel that way, or feels that he needs to give some slack to a buddy of his that he goes and has dinner with their wives and stuff,
yeah,
which is fine. It's great. I love doing that too. But I got my friends at home. My friends are at home, right?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
My work counterparts are at work. And if I'm competing, then now they're my enemy.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's what people don't understand. An IndyCar team, you guys are let's say you're the Dallas Cowboys. The team next to you is the Oakland Raiders. I mean, you don't want the Las Vegas Raiders, excuse me. Y'all are in the same happy league, but you want to, like I said, you want to bust their brains, kick their brains in. Let me ask you, Jack Harvey, what's the sense you get about him, the look in his eye? Explain what you are getting from him from an eagerness or an excitement standpoint.
Well, listen, what I get from him is he worked his ass off to get this opportunity. He deserves this opportunity. Now he has to deliver, and he knows it. And by the way, I'm in the same boat. My team is in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're together on this, right?
Yes.
So I see a lot of desire. He's a very, very smart racer, and in getting more and more experience by the race. And it's going to be real interesting to see what he does with the opportunity. I just told my partner, I said, we have bought everything we can buy to make this car as fast as it can be. We have not said no to anything, right?
Yeah.
In the legal world of IndyCar racing. So now it's just up for his side of the equation, get that done. Our side of the equation, preparation and pit stops, and strategy. And listen, we're gonna have some tough days, but what we want to do, like I said, when we stopped racing after Indy last year, we were 10th in points, and that's exactly where we deserve to be.
Yeah.
And we want to tick that up a little bit, but that consistency, that's what we need to shoot for a 17 race deal.
The canopy, what do you call it? The
windscreen.
Yeah, the Aeroscreen that's going on these cars. It's going to be in the 80s. I think this weekend in St. Pete. It's just going to be the acid test on the flow-through ventilation system, et cetera. Just, what do you expect?
Yeah.
How have y'all prepared, I guess, for that aspect of it?
Yeah, no, it will be. You're right. We've got not all kinds. We have legal cooling methods that have helped the drivers a lot. Okay, in a very short amount of time, by the way.
Yeah.
And everybody has the same options. You can't go off and do your own hybrid driver cooling program, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing we can change is we've come up with a hanging fan system while he's sitting in the cockpit to keep him cool while he's sitting in the pit lane. And that's about all we can do. I don't think, their Aeroscreen itself is not going to really change the racing a whole lot. To be honest with you, it does add 70 pounds. That's a lot of mass to a very light race car.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of unfortunate, but it's part of the deal. And we got a piece now on the car that I'm slowly warming up to, and now it's starting to look normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know is it would, I've always said this, it would save JW Wilson.
Yeah.
And so we focus on that, and it'll be a B story very soon.
Yeah. The racetrack itself, because you've been to St. Pete, obviously. Yeah. Do you like this racetrack? And I'm not trying to get you to slam, but I'm just it's always not bothered me, maybe not the right term, but street courses just leave a little bit to be desired for me, just personally. Why? Because a lot of times they're really bumpy. The confining of the concrete, it's like one little error can cost you $100,000 more than that, bucks of putting a car back together, et cetera. Do you like the idea of having a season opener on a street course?
I'm opposite of you. I like street courses. I liked them as a driver. I loved them. I did Montreal, Toronto, Three Rivers myself, maybe a couple other ones. I really enjoyed them. It's an aggressive, full attack mode. So what you have Tim, is you have a car that's going up, down, side, left, right. There's no stability to it because of all the crown in the road and the bumps make the car buck and do all kinds of crazy stuff no matter what you do, right?
Right.
You think about St. Pete is nothing compared to like Detroit. Detroit is a muscle machine, right?
Crazy.
Like you got to get in there and tell the car you're going to kick its ass this time, right? Yeah. And it's just the way it is. And yes, crashes do tend to be a bit bigger because of the walls, but I think in particular St. Pete is well laid out. I think the city treats it as a high level 150,000 spectator event, which is, they'll have a bit more than you'd have at the shoe on a given weekend, right?
Yep.
Which is great. And I think the city make it a great event. So it's more than just the race in cars going around in a circle, right?
Yeah.
There's other things to do. All the restaurants and businesses, not only downtown, but like out on St. Petersburg Beach, they all kind of celebrate the race. And for one weekend, everyone kind of thinks about racing.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that.
Real quick, you're a driver, you're a former driver. What part of that racetrack especially do you see as a place that's a separator, so to speak? I mean, separates the guy having a great weekend from the guy having a regular weekend. What?
I'll tell you what it is, and almost to a T. This track, getting through turn 1, 2, 3 combo on the start of a start or a restart for that matter, but the start most importantly is the trickiest thing you'll do all day, because you go from what is it, 6 cars wide to 2, and somebody inevitably runs it up the inside and flat takes you out. So that guy might have been 10th and you're running 3rd, and he'll drive through you because he outbroke himself. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, we've seen it many times.
We've talked a lot on our pre-race notes. We have a big pre-race, driver sheet, about positioning, where you should be, where, depending on where we qualify, here's where you need to place the car to have the best odds to come out of that 1, 2, 3 combination. So for me, it's the 1, 2, 3 at the beginning of the race. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because you got to figure most of the teams are doing the same thing you did, so everybody's trying to get to that spot,
That's right. That's right.
And the thing is, you don't know where you're going to be until after qualifying on Saturday. So, it's like,
that's right.
I just think it's really interesting. And I'm not slamming street races because street races street races do take the racing to the people, so to speak. I mean, the fact you could just walk in a gate and there's a concrete wall right there with a fence on top of it, and you can watch a guy go by you going 160 miles an hour. I've always liked to take different positions, like at Detroit, when I used to go up there and cover that race. I mean, on Belle Isle, and even before that, when it was downtown. I mean, the F1 race there, I really enjoyed covering that race because it does put things in perspective. I just think from a Jeopardy standpoint, one little miss, you go over a bump 100 times. That 101st time may break that upright, and boom, it's just wear and tear and stuff. Hey, Mike, last couple of things. I don't know if you saw Ryan Newman had an interview on the Today Show earlier this week. And here he is walking and talking. We had a whole episode or part of an episode about that and stuff. And I don't know, as a team owner, I would think you feel about as good about safety. You guys with this new Aeroscreen and stuff, you feel about as good about safety as you ever have, right? In auto racing. I mean, because clearly strides have been taken over the last 20 years that have kept people safe and alive.
Well, clearly, and that if you track that over the years, you'll see a real upswing in that track level just in the last, say, 20 years since Earnhardt died. Yeah, especially, and Senna before him. It's just innovative things that come along as technology allows, safer walls. All the things you can think of. Now we have this. The new NASCAR car that'll come out in 22 will be even better than this car. There's so many things that make it safer and safer, which there's kind of sometimes two schools of thought. Some people want the old school, risk your life. There's a reason you're a race car driver. And me, I just like the idea of protecting these guys that work for us and not at least risking their life when it's not necessary anymore these days. We've grown as a world and grown in technology. And there's no reason racing shouldn't grow with that, in my opinion.
Okay, last couple things. Give me, I want to talk about unheralded people sometimes. Can you go around the car, just so you're watching a pit stop right now that's going on? Can you go around the car and name the different guys that are doing the different things over the wall?
Yeah, so we have so the leader of the runs the whole program and the crew chief is a guy named Adam Rovazini. He's always on the outside front, and then out back you have our jack guy, a young guy named Kyle Gibson. Then we have our fueler is Frank Camacho, so takes care of our trucks. He's our fueler. On our left front, this week we have a young guy, a guy named Tyler that is an engineer for us that's been practicing very hard on tire changes, and he'll get a shot on the inside front.
Gotcha.
And then finally I have a real pro on the outside rear, which is one of the trickiest positions in an IndyCar pit stop. He's kind of a wily veteran named Donnie Skinner that's really, really fast back there. We're changing 4 tires in about 5.6 seconds.
Crazy.
Now remember, it's not like F1.
Right.
This is one guy, 1 tire, right?
Well, yeah, actually, one guy, 2 tires, because he's taking one over the wall with him, and then and then he's taking one off and putting the other one on. Yeah, F1's crazy, man. But you left out one guy, I think. Who's that new guy? The tear off ripper offer who will be going over the wall.
That's right. We do have a tear-off ripper, and he is our gearbox specialist named Marty Armstrong. So, Marty could later on do some tire changing for us too. So, Marty is a veteran of many years in racing, and that's a crucial point. When you miss it, it's going to slow the whole thing down. So that'll be a new dynamic that you can watch on TV on Sunday.
How many times has he practiced that? I mean, or can you afford to practice on ripper offers?
Yeah, no, we don't practice that too much because of that.
Yeah,
but you practice the motion basically.
Yeah, and we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, the tear off that's going to be on the Aeroscreen, the new Aeroscreen, which is in essence it's almost it's a 3/4 enclosed cockpit now for IndyCar drivers. There's just enough space now left for them to get in and out of the car, and all things come for a reason, and that's for safety purposes. Well, Mike, Rocky Fork Company affords us this opportunity to talk every so often. We're going to be a little more regular as the season goes, but let's Brian Bailey, how fired up is he? The Rocky Fork dude.
He's a huge supporter of racing, and specifically MSR, and wouldn't do it without him. And certainly thank Rocky Fork for being a part of this and really bringing motorsports to Central Ohio.
Yeah, and you can feel the pride of everybody who's been involved with you all these years kind of coming to the fore right now of being in this major league where you've been pointing for a while. Absolutely, and that's something we don't take lightly, and we appreciate a ton. So listen, we're going to do the best we can for everybody, and I think we have pretty good odds at it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back pretty soon in the next week or so to talk about what happened with the Meyer Shank Racing program in its debut in a full-time capacity in the IndyCar racing in the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, the St. Petersburg Grand Prix, and also we'll look forward to the Sebring race for his Acura NSX program in IMSA. But until then, this is Tim May, and who's on the other line? Michael Shank. See you next time, ladies and gentlemen.